Okay, welcome back. There's a cool little diagram on page 339 that talks about what all this private and public stuff means. So right now, these are the only two access specifiers that we have. Private means that you cannot see it from outside the class. Now, let me go back to this to make sure you understand. Inside my rectangle class, I can see everything. Marking it private or public has no bearing whatsoever. Inside my rectangle class, I can see everything. Got it? But when I switch over to this and type in, R dot, that's where the public and private comes up. I only get to see the public things. I don't get to see the private things. So inside, it's sort of like, okay. I'm thinking this is making sense to you, right? So if you're inside the classroom, you can't hide. But if somebody's walking down the hall, they can't see you. Okay? But I can see you because you were inside the classroom. So even if you're hidden inside the classroom, I can still see you. Okay? Kind of makes sense? Okay. On page 340, they talk about the layout. There's a particular sequence of things I want you to put, so that's why I specifically told this class diagram thing, it's actually Navigator, but who cares, to not put things by name, but put them by the order which they are in the source. Because this is kind of sort of important. And here's how it works. There are rules. Oh yeah, you better be paying attention. So what are the rules and best practices for laying out of class? All right, the first one is if you have any constants, put those at the top. Well, we don't. Hey, I'm just going to make a constant, right? Just so we can have one. So I'm going to say, I don't know, public final, I don't know, int kumquat is equal to 12. I don't know, something. Okay. So I have a final. So finals go at the constants go at the very top. Put the field variables next, which in this particular case is the PFV length and PFV width. 99% of the time, those guys are going to be private. Make sense? Good. Put constructors next. Now, we haven't even said what a constructor is, so just nod your head going, okay, and just write it down in your notes. Yes, conductors go in third, and we'll talk about what those are in just a minute. And then put all the setters and getters. Now, some people like to put all the getters together and all the setters together. I don't care. Some people like to put them in pair, get length, set length, and get width, set width. That kind of makes sense to me, but again, I don't really care. It doesn't matter if you put the setters first or the getters first. That's not relevant. Just the setters and the getters come next, okay? However you want to mix them together. If you want to separate them out or put them in pairs, that's fine. I don't care. And then all the rest of the methods. Okay, so the way it would work is constants at the top, field variables, constructors, which we haven't talked about yet, getters and setters, and then everything else. All the rest of the methods go there. Okay. So they talk about, on page 341, instance fields and methods. It should be fairly obvious that I can build two of these guys, right? So I'm going to do something here and say, let's go ahead and do r dot set width. And this will be, I don't know, 20. Okay, I just want to be able to see this thing work now, because now that the calculate area thing, my secondary input validation, my sanity checking should work. And yay, the area is 800. So I have a room that's 800 square feet. Cool. So it's time to build us another room. So I'm going to call this one a little bit better name, because R doesn't mean anything. So I'm going to call this one living room is equal to new rectangle. And so living room set width is, I don't know, 12. And living room set width, let's let length is, I don't know, 20. Okay, so it should be fairly obvious that R, whatever R is, and living room are two separate cookies, right? So now that I started modifying them, clearly it's not, when I ask for the area, all right, it is not going to be 800 now, is it? Because these are two separate ones, right? Kind of makes sense. So I'm just going to grab living room here and paste it in the place of the R, and let's run this guy. So these are two separate instances. I don't think this is a very complex thing to think about. Yes, they're two rectangles, two instances of rectangle, two separate objects of the rectangle class. But other than the fact they were created from the same recipe, they're distinct and independent, individual. Okay, kind of makes sense. So the next thing we are going to talk about is constructors. Yay! All right, on page 346, the idea is every time I create one of these things, maybe I want to run a little bit of code, okay? I want to run just a tiny bit of code every time you run one of these things, just to, I don't know, initialize things or set things up or do something. Okay, so I don't like the fact that I have to type in the length and the width every single time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is so remember now we have constants first, and then field variables, and then we have constructors. So what are the rules for writing a constructor? Ooh, okay, you guys ready? All right, constructors are very strange. All right, so you're going to have to pay attention. All right, the constructor, the name of the constructor must be the name of the class. Okay, there's no exception here. And they look like a normal method, but one of the things you can tell it's a constructor, well, by its name, but you can also tell because it does not have a return type. Now all the programming languages do it this way, so once you learn this, it's pretty universal. And I can have more than one constructor, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to say, and by the way, 99.9% of the time the constructor is going to be public because you want the people to use the constructor. So no return type, so I'm just going to say rectangle. Okay. All right, so there, I built me a constructor. And let's say, I don't know, for no particular reason, I'm going to say PFV length. If you don't tell us what the length is, I'm going to assume that it's 10 by 10, okay? That sounds silly, but I need to be able to demonstrate what's the use of having a constructor. Okay, so now I can go here, and instead of doing it that way, I can say rectangle, I don't know, bathroom is equal to new rectangle. And then I'm just going to turn right around and ask it how big it is without putting any values in. Dang it, if I could type, this would be going a heck of a lot faster, wouldn't it? I mistyped it twice. That's all right, I'll fix it. Okay, so all this does is just set some initial values, which is pretty cool. That way, if it is 10 by 10, I don't have to set it. Okay, let's just make sure it works. Okay, it didn't affect the other two at all, right? It just, now I don't have to put anything in there. But let's put another one in there, another constructor. And so to be able to put another constructor in, I need to talk about this concept of what a method signature is. Okay, so let's just talk about this. A method signature is based upon several things. It's based upon the name of the method, okay? And then the arguments to the method and everything about the arguments, the order in which they're in, the data types that they're in, how many there are, okay? So it is perfectly okay for me to go here and add another one of these constructors, provided that the number and types and order of the parameters has changed. So I'm going to say public rectangle, and then I'm going to say double length, double width. And then I'm going to say PFV length is equal to length, and PFV width is equal to width. Dang it, you know, I don't know why I can't spell rectangle to save my life. R PFV. Okay, so now let's go back to here. And so let's do yet another room to our house. This will be the bedroom. Okay. Now this is going to be something that's kind of sort of like, just like we did when, every time that we built a scanner, we always passed a variable to it. So this is going to be bedroom. And that is going to be a 12 by 12. Okay, so what I'm doing is instead of asking for the default, which would not be very useful very often, I'm actually telling it how big my room is at the time. All right, let's run this. And ta-da, it's 144 square feet. Yay, great. All right, now the problem here is I've got a secondary input validation problem. What's to prevent me from doing that? You know, I'm a lazy programmer and I type things wrong occasionally. And so my machine basically can't figure this out. My store-bought component can't figure it out. So what I need to do is there's a term that I use, it's called washing. I need to wash these incoming things through the input validation, okay? Now there's two ways to do that. I can go here where I did the input validation and copy and paste, okay? That's one way, but I don't like copying and pasting. So instead of having this guy go all the way and talk directly to the variables, I am going to have it go use the setters, because the setters already have the input validation in them. So here we're going to do set length, and then we're going to do set width, Okay, so I'm going to run this one more time. And then when we got to here, it basically just said, didn't say anything at all. Oh, did I fix it? Ha 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 ha, okay. Sorry. So now I'm a lazy programmer and I need, my input can't be trusted, which quite frankly is a good thing. And it goes, oops, value must be set, oops, 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 oops. You know, it oopsed once and oops a second time. Cool, kind of makes sense. So, again, this part's not in the book and it's a mystery to me of why it's not. So whenever you're passing something to a constructor, you have to do input validation. So several choices. One of it is copy and paste. I don't like that. And the other is just use the setters because you've already done the input validation here. But all is not well in Java world. See this little yellow warning? For things that we have, it's going to be difficult to talk about because we haven't got to this concept yet. But what they're saying is, if this class you inherited from this class, trust me, we'll get to that in, I think, the next chapter. The next chapter is going to have, well, chapter after that. Chapter 8 is going to be a little bit more about this stuff. So don't worry about what inheritance is. But what they're saying is, if you were inheriting this thing, then that might cause a problem. Well, since I'm not inheriting it, I could just ignore that problem, or one of the choices they have is to set something as a final. It says, make the method set length final. And that would be one solution to the problem. But I'm just going to table that discussion to some other time when we can actually talk about it intelligently. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark. You guys know how this works.